Salutations, dear viewers, or happy St. Patrick's Day, perhaps I should say. So today is 17th of March. So what is Paddy's Day? Well, first of all, one needs to establish who St. Patrick was. It may be news to some of you that he was not Irish. I remember when I was 6 years old, our teacher, who was American, asking us which country St. Patrick was from, and the class chorused Ireland, except yours truly, who said Wales. And I could see the sense of discombobulation cross Mrs. Lord's face. Why is the only Irish child in the class getting this wrong? St. Patrick came from the west coast of Great Britain. So people often say Wales. We don't know exactly where he was from. And Wales, as such, didn't exist, nor did Scotland or England. But anyway, he was a Romanized ancient Britain. And he was a Christian, because Christianity had come to Great Britain sometime before. In Ireland, we used to raid our neighbours, the ancient Britons, and take them as slaves, because, of course, we're the master race and they are mere ethnic chaff. So he was held in servitude in Ireland and forced to be a shepherd in the northern province of Ulster. Perhaps I should say kingdom, because Ireland was divided into several kingdoms, often at war against each other. We did have a high king, but he had little control. So he lived in rough circumstances in Ireland for quite a few years, and then he felt that God was calling him to escape, because slaves aren't necessarily chained up or locked in at night or something like that. So escaping perhaps wouldn't be that easy. We noticed if he'd gone, and perhaps people would notice he was a foreigner and trying to have to leave on foot. Anyway, he got to a port. He had no money to pay for his passage. How was he going to go abroad? Curiously, he didn't try and get back to Great Britain. Well, perhaps he did. But anyway, he ended up getting on a ship to Gaul, France as we now call it. And the cargo was full of dogs who were frightened about being on this ship and were barking madly. So he was able to persuade the sea captain to let him on board, and he would calm these hounds. So the dogs became tranquil due to Patrick's ministrations. Incidentally, his name, Patrick, or Patroclus as it is in Latin, it indicates he's from a patrician or upper class family. Indeed, his grandfather was a priest. Of course, sacerdotal marriage was permitted right up until the 11th century, I think it is, by all Christian denominations. That's another point, because when he was in France, he was ordained a priest, later became a bishop, and he went on a mission back to Ireland. People often say he was sent by the Pope. There's no record of that from his lifetime. It's many centuries later that people start putting that in accounts of his life, because obviously the Roman Catholic Church in Ireland likes to claim him. Remember, till 1054, there was only one church in Europe. There was the Christian Church. We hadn't split into the Catholic Church in the West and the Orthodox Church in the East. There was a Bishop of Rome. He was a patriarch of the West, but he was on a par with four Eastern patriarchs of Jerusalem, Antioch, Moscow, Constantinople? I can't remember. Right, so he comes back to Ireland, and he began spreading the gospel. And he spread these joyous tidings in various ways, and he was able to link Christian Nostra to our pagan beliefs and say, oh, this god or goddess, well, that's similar to Saint whoever it is. There were already holy wells in Ireland, as in where water bubbled up through the rock. And then these became places of Christian veneration, even down to this day. In Beara, for example, their places signposted like that. So it was just reimagining figments of the Irish imagination, clothing them in Christian theology. What else? So these shrines and places of pilgrimage remain the same. So the hill of Tara, which is perhaps 100 kilometres north of Dublin, the Boyne Valley, many people regarded that as the capital of Ireland, and we had those burial tombs at Newgrange, and a pagan fire was lit on a certain hillside, and he built a fire on a neighbouring hillside to try and show that Jesus Christ was greater. He used the shamrock, which grows almost everywhere, ubiquitously in Ireland, to explain the doctrine of the Trinity. It's got the three leaves. If you tear one of them off, the other two die, so it's 3 in 1 kind of thing. What else? As you can imagine, the people who believed on our ancient pantheon were not best pleased to have this foreign interloper telling them their beliefs were dead wrong. So as he was proselytizing for the Christian faith, some of those people decided to bump him off. He was going around in a horse-drawn cart, and one day his driver said, "I'm rather tired. Could we possibly swap places?" And St. Patrick, being a charitable chap, wasn't beneath his station to take the reins. And sometime later, somebody jumped out from behind a boulder and thrust a javelin into the other man's chest. He died. That was the coach driver. Patrick had swapped places with him. So this man presumably knew there was going to be an attempt on St. Patrick's life, so chose to do this. Would it not have been wiser to take a different route or just not travel that day? But there we are. He was willing to sacrifice his life to preserve that of the saint of our isle, who was on a mission from God. Anyway, so Patrick preached the joyous tidings of Christianity all over the island. Well, actually, he was almost entirely in the northern half of the island. So Armagh is the religious capital of Ireland for both the Catholic denomination and the Church of Ireland. So he spent his time up there for the most part. And he had a staff of a certain type of wood, and he planted it in the ground, and that grew into a tree, and that supposedly gave us all the trees of that species in Ireland. I don't recall which one it is. Another tale is how he drove the serpents out of Ireland. Now, skeptics may tell you that actually they died out in the last ice age, but let's not believe in rationalism. There are only snakes in zoos or as private pets. They're not in the wild in Ireland. So Ireland's unique in that sense. What else did he do for Hibernia? Well, he penned his book, St. Patrick's Confession, a hymn, St. Patrick's Breastplate, I bind unto myself today the strong name of the Trinity, and so forth. There's a well outside St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, which he supposedly discovered. That would be well outside the city of Dublin at the time, maybe 3 kilometres. And he's buried in Downpatrick Cathedral, means the place of Patrick in County Down. So that is St. Patrick. So he had a very significant impact on the course of Irish history. Apparently he wasn't the very first Christian missionary, but he was certainly the most successful in era. So what else? By the end of his life, almost everybody in Ireland was Christian. Now, admittedly, as in most countries, they grafted Christian apologetics onto pagan beliefs beneath that. And that was that. And then Ireland, became so fervently Christian that we sent missionaries to Great Britain when they relapsed, and around Europe sent Garland going to Switzerland, to the city which bears his name. Another very significant point about Patrick is his colour is blue, sort of midnight blue. It's a very common misconception that it's green. It's not. Now, Ireland's 4 provinces, the eastern one, Leinster, has a green field and a gold harp as the flag. Now, Leinster's got Dublin, therefore most of the population, and people often treat Leinster as coterminous with Ireland, well, certainly in terms of flags, and therefore Ireland was sometimes represented by the Leinster flag. It's a provincial flag, not a national flag. And then in the 1790s, the United Irishmen, this Republican, ultranationalist, revolutionary organisation, they took the Dutch flag, saying the Dutch are a republic and they have liberty. They're dark blue and they're orange. Mix that together, we get dark green, and that would be their colour. What else? Thomas More, the Irish poet, not the English saint. In the early 19th century, he penned a poem about the Emerald Isle being Ireland, and so Ireland became associated with deep green, and the nationalist movement through the 19th century had dark green as its colour. But really, our colour is dark blue. And Irish embassies around the world will have St. Patrick's blue with the gold harp, and that's really our symbol. The Irish Guards Regiment of the British Army wear a mid-blue plume, should be a bit darker blue as St. Patrick's blue, and things like that. Of course, so St. Patrick's Day is celebrated all over the world, wherever green is worn. The wearing of the green, well, that's another song about the 1790s, 1798 really. That's something that's done more in the United States than Ireland. There are people who wear green on St. Patrick's Day. There's a fairly recent innovation. And another curious thing is every Irish politician worth his or her salt troops off to Washington, D.C. to kowtow to the great white chief, Donald Trump. Wouldn't it be nice if, just for a change, the Irish leadership spent Patrick's Day in Ireland? So there we call it Paddy's Day. So it's an apolitical festival in that sense. It could have been, our National Day could have been the day that the major portion of Ireland became independent. Another thing about St. Patrick's Day is it is before the Reformation. So both major denominations can claim him. Church of Ireland people say that he founded the Church of Ireland. Catholics would say, well, no, he founded the Catholic Church in Ireland. Both of them have a certain logic to their case, but the places really associated with him are owned by the Church of Ireland. And long ago, Catholic priests said, we should have those back. Anything else? Well, there are cathedrals all over the world, Karachi to New York City, named in his honour. Dyeing the River Green in Chicago for St. Patrick's Day. That's that. You know, my parents' childhood used to be a day of quiet, remembrance, reflection. People recalled him prayerfully rather than a raucous celebration, but it's certainly a fabulous time. What else? So the Ancient Order of Hibernians will march on this day, things like that. And the British royal family represent a sprig of shamrock to the Irish Guards on this day. At Eton, the son of the senior Irish peer would present shamrock to the headmaster. That's enough on Patrick's Day.